welcome to Channel 44. I'm Masi Gashegu Sembatia to bring you today's news update together with
Noah Harris and Bill Clinton to bring to you the updates in our newspapers. This is yet another day that the Lord has made, and we shall rejoice and be glad in it. And in today's papers, I will begin with the New Vision. We have the First Lady warns against homosexuality. Wow, King's College Budo head teacher Fred Nakaziwe and the First Lady Mrs. Janet and the Education Ministry Permanent Secretary Kate Lamaro destroyed the old building, and all this story is on page 4 of our news, our New Vision today. Ministry investigates Budo social media reports. You will also find this story in our today's New Vision. The life and times of Janan al-Wum. Wow, the reason why we are free and we didn't go to work today. You shall also find the details on page 2. You might need to know what happened and why we are celebrating such a day and why you didn't drive your cars to work. Security story. Police rescues 5 kidnapped people, and details you shall find them on page 7 of our today's New Vision. Registrar clerk on spot over court order. And this one, the Judicial Service Commission has launched the investigation into circumstances under which Court of Appeal Assistant Registrar Henry Twinomwezi issued a controversial order in a South Sudan businessman appeal case. The order has since rubbed several judicial officers the wrong way, although he says it was mere drafting error. More of this story, you shall find it on 28 of today's New Vision. Lastly, with our New Vision, public varsities to get shillings 150 billion for facelift. This story on page 3 of our New Vision. Don't forget, there is physics, math, and entrepreneurship for Senior 2 and Senior 6. To rush to you, in the Daily Monitor, we have a woman appeals against fine for refusing to marry. Wow, you will enjoy this story on page 3. Her inside story is Mrs. Fortunate Shari Kunda, the woman caught last month ordered to pay shillings 10 million for breaching a marriage promise, now says was not duly served with summons to file her defense, thus violating her right to be heard. Well, to the marrieds, you will need to read how it is a repercussion, what the repercussion of breaking the marriage vows. To rush, NSSF files staff to Dubai for team building. This story is on page 4. Then Karamoja MPs turn heat on ministers over relief items. Wow, more of this story on page 7. Chaos, anxiety as Nabanja orders eviction in Upper. The Prime Minister, Mrs. Robin Nabanja, yesterday met a group of more than 170 people at Amuru District Council Hall, where she delivered the directive on page 2. Lastly, in our Daily Monitor, message receives credentials for 7 new envoys. Wow, this story, you shall find it on page 9 of the Daily Monitor. Thank you so much for our today's local updates and in our newspapers. Over to you, Sheila, for our international updates.
Masi Gashegu. Well, in our international news update today, angry protests have broken out in some Nigerian towns and cities as people struggle to get hold of new banknotes. Struggles and frustration has been building for weeks after a shortage of newly designed Naira notes led to a lack of cash. Some customers in the southern Nigerian's Warri and Benin City reportedly set fire to 2 commercial banks. Nigerians have faced long queues at cash machines, with some sleeping outside banks to try and be first in line to get some money. People say they have been forced to skip meals and work without cash to pay for food or transport to their jobs. Some banks were broken into while protesters looted their cash machines. In Benin City, customers attempted to invade the Central Bank of Nigeria's local offices, but security officers fired tear gas at them. In Cameroon, an enormous plume of dust from the Sahara Desert threatens to sweep through half of Cameroon, according to the transport minister. If the forecast wind conditions are maintained, the dust could cause road accidents due to reduced visibility, and the dust could also cause respiratory diseases, according to the minister. The plume of dust is currently crossing Cameroon's far north region and could reach 4 other regions in the coming days. The minister has urged people to drive carefully and protect their eyes and noses appropriately. Each year, Cameroon experiences dust storms from the Sahara that cross the country from north to south. Anxious residents are still demanding answers 12 days after a train carrying toxic chemicals derailed in the small Ohio town of East Palestine. Mr. Figley, a 63-year-old graphic designer, was sitting on his sofa on the night of the 3rd of February when he heard the horrifying sound of metal screeching to a halt. He and his wife got into the car to investigate and discovered a hellish scene. Fire sprang up from the accident. Panicking residents who lived just blocks away had to run for their lives. Days later, a toxic pillar of storms towered over the town as officials burned off dangerous chemicals known as vinyl chloride before it could explode. Elsewhere, the search for a new First Minister of Scotland has begun after Nicola Sturgeon's surprise decision to stand down. The SNP leader made the announcement on Wednesday after more than 8 years in the job. She plans to remain in office until her successor is elected. The SNP's National Executive Committee will meet today to draw up a timetable for a leadership race. With no obvious successor, the party's first leadership contest in nearly 20 years could see a debate on future direction and strategy. Still in the United States, the FBI has conducted 2 searches with the last month of the University of Delaware to check if U.S. President Joe Biden donated papers that could have been classified. Investigators retrieved multiple boxes from the college on 2 different days, according to the press. The university, Mr. Biden's alma mater, houses thousands of boxes of files related to his time in the Senate. Donald Trump faces a criminal inquiry over his handling of classified files. Documents marked classified have been found in recent months at Mr. Biden's home in Delaware and offices that he used in Washington, D.C. The FBI recovered some of the files during a search of his private residence at Wilmington last month. Crowds of retirees in China have again taken to the streets to protest against cuts to their medical benefits. They gathered yesterday for a second time in Wuhan, where COVID was first detected, and also in the northeastern city of Dalian. The second round of protests in 7 days puts pressure on President Xi Jinping's administration just weeks before the annual National People's Congress, which will usher in a new leadership team. Protests first took place in Wuhan on the 8th of February after provincial authorities said they were cutting the level of medical expenses which retirees can claim back from government. Social media footage shows the protesters to be largely elderly retirees who say this comes at a time of soaring healthcare costs. It's still in our international news. The president of the World Bank will step down from his post in June, leaving the organization almost a year before his term was due to end. David Malpass announced his decision on social media without providing a specific reason for his departure. The pick of former U.S. President Donald Trump, he has been criticized as a climate change denier. Last year, the White House rebuked him after he said he did not know if fossil fuels were driving climate change. He later apologized for the remarks. And finally, Antarctic glaciers may be more sensitive to changes in sea temperatures than was thought, according to new research. The British Antarctic Survey and the U.S. Antarctic Program put sensors and an underwater robot beneath the vast Thwaites Glacier to study melting. The size of Britain, Thwaites is one of the world's fastest changing glaciers. Its susceptibility to climate change is a major concern to scientists because if melted completely, it would raise global sea levels by half a meter. The new research suggests that even low amounts of melting can potentially push a glacier further along the path towards eventual disappearance.
More details of these stories shall be narrated to you in our afternoon news bulletin. Stay tuned and don't go away from the Global High Command Services, Channel 44, the best name in television. My name is Nohereza Bill Clinton Kamuntu.
And Masi Gashegu Sembatia, I remind you that we are still helping the people of Karamoja. Join us once again by sending your seed to the numbers that will be availed during the services, during the lunch hour programs, and all the time that the pastors will be ministering. The Pastors Now program is up next here on Channel 44. Stay tuned and get to see the great things the Lord is doing in our midst here at the Miracle Center. God bless you and enjoy your morning.
Good morning.